been going through the book of Judges, and we will keep doing that today. So we have done 2 of the Judges so far. You can find those messages online. If you go to youtube.com, you can look up Pastor Pat Edrington, usually find old messages that way. We also share those messages on the Facebook page, so you can find them there too if you would like to, and catch up that way with anything that you have missed. So we've done Othniel, we did Ehud last week, and then this week we some people have already said, you who look ahead and want to know what's going on, you've already asked me, are we doing Deborah this week? We are not. Everybody loves Deborah. But we're not doing Deborah yet, because there's one verse at the end of chapter 3 that is a judge that doesn't get any recognition and know he talks about. And here at Vintage, we aren't going to just gloss over and not talk about him because he's only got a little bitty line. So all of today's verses we can read like this. Here is all of the references to this guy in the whole Bible. Chapter 3, verse 31 says, after him, being Ehud, after him was Shamgar, the son of Anath, who killed 600 of the Philistines with an Oxgoad, and he also saved Israel. Oh, by the way. Then in Judges 5, 6, and 7, Deborah is singing a song. We'll get there. Come back, because we're going to sing the whole thing. It's going to be grand. Probably not. Calm down. Don't freak out. But Judges 5, 6, and 7 says this. In the days of Shamgar, the son of Anath, in the days of Jael, the highways were abandoned, and travelers kept to the byways. The villagers ceased in Israel. They ceased to be until I arose, I being Deborah. Now, that's it. That's all we know about that guy. But there's a lot going on in those verses, and I think it's really important when we think about our own place in God's kingdom to not just gloss over and move past this thing just because it's not like the most flashy story there. Because a lot of things in this world work because people do the behind-the-scene work to make things happen. So let's look at this guy and really examine what's going on. So first off, you got this guy named Shamgar. Shamgar, his name means sword. So have a child, name the child Sword. That's what, little Sword is with us now. Now here's the interesting part. It says the son of Anath, right? So Shamgar, the son of Anath, which is common in Old Testament because we don't have a lot of last names. So the way to connotate who is we say you're the son of so-and-so. But when you read commentaries, here's what's interesting. Anath is the name of the Syrian god of war. So it's possible that Shamgar, the son of Anath, is not actually who he's the son of. It's the name that is given to him because of what he is doing. This is Shamgar, the son of the god of war, or Sword, the son of the god of war. Now, here's the thing. During this time, and while he is around, you will read later on when we get into Deborah, there's this guy named Jabin. Jabin is the Canaanite king who is persecuting the Jews. The Jews don't know how to deal with him because he has 900 iron chariots, okay? Meaning then, he's got 900 tanks, essentially, and he is subjugating the Jews because the Jews, again, have wandered off into sin, and so because they've wandered off into sin, God's given them over to sin. You want to be a sinner? Fine, go be a sinner, but there's an outcome to that, right? If you sow stupid, you reap stupid. That's the nature of this. That's what God's saying. So you sowed it, now you get to reap it, and you have Jabin. Shamgar is around during the time of Jabin. So here's what's going on. Because Jabin exists, he won't let the Jews arm themselves. They can't have any weapons. Because, we're subjugating. We don't want those we are subjugating and persecuting, we don't want them rising up and arming themselves and overthrowing us, their oppressors. So you can't have any weapons. So, all that to be said, then what happens is, this is all from the one verse, but it makes sense when you think about it. He killed 600 of the Philistines. Well, who are the Philistines? The Philistines are people who live by the Mediterranean Sea. They're seafaring. And they're wild. As we go through Old Testament stuff, like if you don't know, we're going to do the book of Judges, then we're going to get into the king era. We're going to get into like Saul and David and Solomon. Those guys are dealing with the Philistines. The Philistines are a warring, angry, pagan group of people. They saw opportunity here because you have this whole group of people, the Jewish people, who don't have any weapons, and they're not armed, they don't have any way to protect themselves, and they're being persecuted by this king who doesn't really care about them. Meaning then, we can just go over there to where they are, kidnap them, take them, rob them. We can sell them into slavery. We can traffic them. It's going to be great, except for one problem. Our old boy, Shamgar. Now, who is he? Well, here's what we know about Shamgar. He's a farmer. I wish I could tell you that he's like some superhero like the Incredible Hulk, that he's hiding out there and like they come over the hill and he's like, he's eating bones and they're freaked like who? No, this is some Jewish farmer, right? He's just out there. How do we know that? Because it says that he killed them with an oxgoad. I have a picture of an oxgoad so you can, because I don't think, if somebody knows what an oxgoad is, God bless you. Most people don't. Look, that's an oxgoad. That thing is, now that one's little. Most people say the oxgoad that he used was probably between 8 and 10 foot long. And what they would use it for is ox plow your field. But ox are stubborn and they don't want to. See, much like if you take a really fat person and tell them we're going to walk long distances. It's not going to go well. You need a fat person goad. So what you do is, when the ox won't move, you take this thing and you prod him in the back of the head with it. So it's 8 to 10 foot, so you can still stay on your plow, and you can poke this and get to moving. And the ox is like, all right, all right, all right. Now the hook on the end is because the plow blades would a lot of times get clumps of dirt or roots or things stuck in it, and so you needed something to slam into that to pull out. This is essentially a gardening tool. This is not a tool that you used to go to war with. And yet, when those Philistines show up, there stands Shamgar, the son of the god of war, with his ox goad. Now, here's what's interesting. He kills 600 Philistines. And then whoever wrote this down for us, we don't know when. Did he kill them at once? Did he kill them over time? Like, when did he kill? And listen, 600, you're at a number that's hard to process, right? You kill one person, two people, that's creepy. You kill 30 people, okay, now you're super creepy. You get up into those numbers and you're like, cool? What do you do with six? And then he kills 600 of them, and I love the byline, saves Israel. Oh, by the way, he saved Israel. Here's what is funny about the world we live in the context then of our own faith. People tend to think about religion and faith from the place that whoever has the microphone, whoever sings, whoever preaches, that person has some sort of deep faith, right? Oh, they've got the calling. They're the ones we want to listen to. They're the guru. But we don't ever take that and then think about our own life and our own place, that we may just have as much value and as much worth, maybe even more than the weirdo with the microphone. Because here's what's super interesting is, when Shamgar becomes the judge for Israel, he doesn't stop being a farmer. It doesn't say that he set up shop and he was like, come talk to Shamgar. I'm the son of God of war. Look at my ox goad. I did a thing. Now you have to do what I say. It just said, he has an ox goad. He killed 600 Philistines. He saves Israel. Meaning then, he kept doing the thing God equipped him to do, which was farm. You have to get over the mentality in your head where you think, if I'm going to be really deep in my faith, I have to be doing something that's traditional ministry. That's not true. What you have to understand is that when Christ comes into your life and makes you into a new thing, he transforms who you are, but you get to keep the identity and the talents and the abilities he's given you, and you need to use those abilities to advance his kingdom. So Shamgar doesn't have to, it doesn't say he memorized the Old Testament. He didn't even write anything. He may not even have been able to read or write. All he may have known is I have these two big dumb animals, and I have this thing that I grind through the ground, and so I got this stick, and I'm going to hit it, and then, oh, here come some Philistines. Here they come, these rabble-rousers. They're coming over here to steal the women and the children. They're killing my buddies. I'm about to put this ox goad to some use. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to let one of you live, and you go home and tell your friends if you come back, you get to deal with Shamgar. Now, what we know is they apparently keep coming back because he kills 600 of them. I mean, it's fun to think he did it all at once, but the actuality here is he probably did it over time. He put a line in the sand and said, hey, you stay over there and we're going to stay over here. But if you come over here, I'm going to hit you in the head with an Oxgoad. And not in a nice way to make you move the plow. I'm going to hit you in the head so you don't ever get up again. He makes the statement, he makes the point, hey, I'm going to protect what's here. Now, what is super challenging, I think, for all of us is it's hard sometimes to think maybe your place is not to be the hero in the story, but your place is to prepare for the hero. He doesn't liberate them from Jabin. In fact, Deborah sings to him about him that the people were afraid to go out on the roads. They were afraid to do anything in the time of him, basically saying like, he saved us and protected us so that we can get here so that I can liberate you. But if Shamgar hadn't have been faithful and done what God asked him to do and done the work that was in front of him, there's never any spot for there to be work done. I mean, when you stop and think about it from this perspective, there are 2.4 billion people in this world who claim Christianity. Now, I'm not here to argue. I know some of you, your Facebook mind already was like, I disagree. Calm down. 2.4 people check the box that they believe it. I'm not here to argue about whether they are or where they aren't. What that means, 2.4 billion people in the world say, yep, I probably believe that. That's a lot of people. Do you realize there's zero if Shamgar doesn't hit somebody in the head with an Oxgoad? Like this minuscule, small thing that doesn't seem like it matters, it doesn't seem like it's important, if he doesn't do it, it's possible there's no Israel. Well, why is that important? Christ comes out of that line. And the Old Testament predicts he'll come out of that line. So you can't just say, well, he's going to come out of the line and then have some point in their history where they're scattered to the wind, put into Philistine occupation with no idea whether who's who, are you Jewish, or are you not. That line had to be protected. It had to be, they had to come through history so that Christ could come out of their line. So even though it doesn't feel like it's that important or that, he's a superhero in the faith, because he did what he did. Meaning then, we need to think about our own place in God's kingdom the same way. We have people who clean our toilets here. We do, 2 gals, Molly, Michelle, they show up, they clean the toilets. Nobody's like, ooh, that sounds awesome. But do you know that if somebody new shows up, and they don't know Jesus, and they have no walk with the Lord and no understanding of who Christ is or what he has for them, that they may come in, they can come in early, it's overwhelming, you people are a lot, they don't know where to go, what to do, what to say. They're like, oh, I think I need to go to the restroom. Then you go to the bathroom, and then the bathroom's gross, that may be it. They may never have an experience with Jesus because nobody went in there and did what they did. So you don't think that Molly or Michelle, you don't think them cleaning that bathroom is just as important as me screaming into a microphone? You're nuts. Steve mows our yard every week. Do you think that's not important? Like if you drive, because I know some of you get real fired up about it. Drive by and you're like, I don't know what they're doing at that house. That yard's grass is 2 inches taller than it needs to be right now. But it is your witness. And it's those little like piddly things that don't seem like they matter. But if you're not faithful in those small things, you may burn a bridge that somebody may never ever cross because we didn't do some little minuscule thing. And so instead of being like, well, it doesn't matter. No, it does matter. It super matters. It's as important as somebody preaching that everybody finds their place and finds their purpose and does the thing that God wants them to do. You can learn that lesson from Shamgar. You can learn this. God doesn't care about your position. God did not pick some king at the time. God did not pick some great lead. All we know about him is he has a couple ox and he has the tool to have the ox. And God was like, I'm going to use you. We don't know if he's super spiritual. We don't know if he cusses those ox out. I'm assuming he does. I don't know anybody has animals that they work with that at some point doesn't go on a tirade of language. But listen, we don't know about any of it. But what we do know is he honors and respects God, knows that the Jews are special and sacred, and is going to protect them. So God picks who is there to do what needs to be done. I was just having a conversation this week with one of you, and you're going through it, right? Just going through a mess. But this was what they said to me, and I was like, man, let's just give this person a microphone. I don't even need to speak. They said, Pastor Pat, I think God in my life has put me through the things I've been through and allowed me to go through the stuff I've gone through and come out the other side redeemed and restored so that then I can speak back into this person's life that I'm dealing with right now. Because I don't think that person would listen to me if I hadn't have been through what I'd been through. Sometimes we forget that even though we go through trauma, we go through discomfort and pain, we suffer and it hurts, that God works to good all things for his glory. And so while it may feel like it's overwhelming and it's too much and you don't know how you're going to get above it and you're going to ride above it, God is already 15,000 steps ahead of you. He doesn't look at you and go, oh, you're a mess, you're a disaster. He looks at you and goes, look at what this person's going to do when they're restored. Your restoration is your ox. That's your thing that you now know and you understand. Not everybody can make that claim. There's a lot of people in this life that don't have any bumps or bruises. They don't go through trauma. They don't face dark times and hard times. God's been good to them. But some of you have been through some rough stuff. And people who've been rough stuff need other people who've been through rough stuff to tell them they don't have to keep living in the rough stuff. You know what I don't want? I don't want some skinny punk telling me how to be skinny. Don't come up at me and tell me I need to lose weight and eat right and you just need to do this or that. You eat whatever you want and you look the way you look because God likes you and he hates me. Keep your mouth closed. Right? I want somebody that's been through it. I want somebody that's like, hey, I was big. I lost a bunch of weight. Here's what I did. That's the guy I want to listen to. That's no different in our own lives. When there's a problem, God's going to put the right person there. He's not going to go pick the big flashy guy that the world says is important. He's going to take who's best for the job. In Shamgar's story, he doesn't need somebody flashy and charismatic. He needs somebody who's built like a brick house who can swing a big stick. Sometimes violence is the answer. And that's what this says. Like, look, we've played all the games, but you take my family, you take my kids, you're getting hit with a stick. I'm protecting this thing God's given me. The next thing you can go from that is God's going to protect his church. Listen, can we just, Jesus, let me say the right thing to not irritate people in this room. This is from Jesus. Can we stop that anytime the world does something that is pagan or blasphemous, can we stop being Chicken Little about it and running around and acting like we're incensed? The sinners are acting like sinners. Well, yeah, they're sinners. What can we stop acting that when the sinners act like sinners, that like somehow God's defeated and he's not going to protect his church? Do you really think that God is going to have gone, he's going to have his son die and come back to life? He's going to go through 300 years of oppression and persecution in a way that none of us understand, where they systematically killed every leader of the church for 300 years, and that sucker is still here. We're still meeting, still believe the same thing. Do you really believe we're going to go through Black Death? We're going to go through the Crusades. We're going to go, and that what is going to overthrow the church of Jesus Christ, what's going to somehow undermine it, is some French guy painted himself blue and danced around on stage? Calm down. And when you do that, do you realize that you don't say to the world that you have faith and believe that Christ has already overcome this world and he has power and authority over everything that is broken and dead and that he is the breather of life? But what you say to the world is that you are a whiny little complainer that wants to just throw a fit about anything that you don't like? You know what you can do when you find something that turns you off, you don't like? You can go, boop, not watching that, and move on. But we don't have to get on our soapbox and scream at the sky about how terrible everybody is. Because again, just like we got to clean the toilets, just like we got to make sure the grass is mowed, just like we got to make sure things are vacuumed and clean and look nice so that you're prepared. Everything you're doing is building a bridge to people who are lost. And they read your Facebooks and they see your responses. So while you may go, this is blasphemous and I don't like it, you projecting all of that out there may burn a bridge from somebody who needs to find Jesus Christ. Because Facebook is not the avenue to communicate. Facebook exists to irritate you so that you'll see ads for whatever thing you're talking about and you'll buy that stuff. That's what Facebook is. Wake up, church. It doesn't care about you. It's not an avenue to communicate. And all it does is sow dissension and weakness into a church that is built on the strength of the cross of Jesus Christ. He will protect his church. He will raise up Shamgars. He will put people into place that the gates of hell can't prevail against it. So just calm down. When you see the world fall apart, you shouldn't go, oh, where's Jesus? What do we got to do? You should go, thank you, God, that in the midst of this storm, you still are who you are. You are a bulwark in the storm that I'm going to chain my boat to. It doesn't matter which way this wind blows or that wind blows. I know you have me in your hand. And I know there's people lost in this world that are desperate trying to find their place and purpose. And I know I can build a bridge to them and introduce you to them so that they can make the decision on who they're going to be. The next one, as we get off that soapbox, is unsung heroes are still heroes. Some of you need to realize you are a hero. You're a hero. And you may go, Pastor Pat, you don't know, you don't understand what I've done. You don't understand. That person I was talking to, I was like, you realize you have such a pastor's heart? And they're like, they send me back the laugh. There's no way. No, you are. But people think when you say you have a pastor's heart that means they're supposed to preach or teach or they're supposed to. No, preaching and teaching is not pastoring. Preaching and teaching is a totally different gift. Pastoring is caring and loving for people. That's like pastoring is always compared to taking care of a flock of sheep. You don't preach to sheep because they don't speak English. I know we're breaking new ground this morning. And sheep are really dumb. I don't want to hurt your feelings or offend you. Hopefully you're not the PETA crowd, but they're not a smart animal. Sheep, like if one walks off the hill, 4 more will walk after it to see what they're doing. Sheep, when they wander off and get lost, their immediate instinct is to put their head on the ground and go to sleep. Dumb. When God talks about his church, he compares us to sheep. Thank you, Lord. But you need taken care of. Guess what else sheep don't care about? They don't care what their shepherd did. They don't care if their shepherd stinks. They don't care if their shepherd's ugly. They don't care if their shepherd was a mess when he was younger. They don't care if their shepherd's come out of addiction. Don't care. Just, are you going to save me or are you not? Because I'm going to try to kill myself. It's your job to fix that I don't. They could give a rip what that shepherd was. All they just care if he's there to take care of them. That's how God's church is supposed to work. And when you step into that position, you become a hero. It's not about who preaches good. It's not about is the music great. It's about are you in people's lives when they need you to be in their lives to love them and hold them in their brokenness because they need somebody to care for them. And here's a little dirty secret people don't want to talk about, but it's the truth, and it's why I love Vintage. Broken people are the best to minister to broken people. You need people who've walked through some stuff to talk to people who are walking through some stuff. And it's not to say if you haven't walked through it, you can't do ministry to it or you can't speak into it, but there's a difference. There's a difference, and that's why God uses who God uses, and that's why, and here's the thing. That conversation that you have in private moments with that person that's struggling, that you're able to speak into their life and go, hey, listen, the answer is Jesus Christ. Like, I know things are a mess right now. I know things are rough, but until you get yourself right spiritually, it's never going to be right any other way. And then to be able to go, and you know how I know that? Because I went through what you're going through. I walked out of it. I'm where I'm at today because of Jesus. You're a hero. You're a hero because you saved that person. Pastor Pat, only Jesus can save people. Right, Jesus restores people. Jesus makes people who they're supposed to be. He reconciles us out of darkness. But salvation can come at your hands if you're the one that reaches out and grabs somebody in the dark and takes them back to where there's light. It says in our text today, and he saved Israel. It doesn't say God saved Israel. Shamgar saved Israel. Because why? Because he killed 600 Philistines with a stick. Right? We're not talking about, he didn't preach a massive message. He didn't have some giant church service. He didn't do a perfect sacrifice. He didn't look the best. He killed 600 Philistines with a stick. Anybody who came near God's flock, he hit him with a stick. That's what he did. Sometimes it's that small. Sometimes you can be somebody's salvation just because you chose every day to call and see how they're doing. Right? You don't have the spiritual answers. You don't know what Bible scriptures to point him towards. You don't even know how to pray for him. But because you called and said, hey, are you alive? Are you okay? What's going on in your world? That was their salvation. That makes you a hero. They will be in heaven because you were faithful to do the small thing. That's why all of it matters so much. And that's why God's church is contingent upon you being God's church. I mean, imagine if we change this idea and we decide that instead of God using people right where they are like he did with Shamgar, what if we make the decision that no, how we're going to do it now is we're going to have these big meeting areas and we're just going to bring people so they can meet this person. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to just bring the people. Oh, we just brought the people in. And they saw the person. They saw the lady who sings. They saw the guy that preaches. And then they leave. Well, then all of salvation then is built upon that one person's ability to pastor all of those people. Like, you physically can't do it. You think that, like, even I, in our church, in our little church that we have, even I sometimes get overwhelmed with just 80 of you, right? Where it's just like, oh, so-and-so's in the hospital, so-and-so's kids are sick, so-and-so. Like, you just have these things. You need a community. You need people who are willing to be used by God right where they are. And while it's important to share it with your church body, while it's important to get people praying, it's way more important that you just do the work. How many of you have ever struggled with needing something done in your house and you've got to get somebody else to do it and you're like, I wish I knew how to do this because this is frustrating just waiting. Right? Like if you look at somebody in your life that you go, oh, this person needs Jesus. This person needs redemption. This person needs Christ. Well, we just have to wait till we can get them to church on Sunday. Hopefully, Pastor Pat's message is where they're at. Hopefully, who knows with him. I mean, that's crazy, right? I mean, it's essentially like if you walked outside and you're like, oh, my yard needs mowed. Hopefully somebody shows up. I mean, I have the mower and I have the ability, but I hope somebody comes. Hopefully someday. How many things do you have in your life and how many people do you know who are lost in darkness that need to know who Jesus is and what he has for them? And the only thing that keeps them from that is because you're afraid to tell them. God's given you the ox, and he's given you the Oxgoad. He's given you the ability to do the thing, and you just don't do it out of fear. See, the challenge, I think, for all of us is this. We are here to be the hands and feet for Jesus. When Jesus died, and when Jesus resurrected, He redeemed the world, which means this. Some of you in this room are a broken mess. You're a broken mess. Now, here's the dirty little secret. We really can take out that word, some of you. You're all broken messes. You're all sinners who've fallen short of the glory of God. You're all not good enough. You all don't measure up. So this idea that some of you have, that because you've sinned mightily, that somehow the cross is not bigger, we got to get over. You got to get over. I mean, that's how the enemy's going to work. You're already reconciled. You're already saved through Jesus. His act is already perfect. He stands in the gap for you. He does it for you. So when God goes to judge you with his wrath because of the things you've done wrong, those things you feel bad about, when God goes to judge you for that, Jesus goes, "Excuse me, Dad. I already paid the price for that. So you get to judge me." And God is very content to do that. That's how big the action of the cross is. God doesn't get mad. He ain't like, "Well, now hold on a minute. That person's real. You need it." No, he goes, "You're right. They believe. So I'm judging you." Which means then you're set free from the darkness you've walked out of. That's the hope. That's the glory of the gospel. And then God said, you go into all the world and teach what I've taught and do what I've done. Not from the place of go set up churches. What God meant was, I'm going to restore and redeem the things in this world that seem unrestorable and unredeemable. If you're a Jewish person in the time of Shamgar and the Philistines at your doorstep, that's overwhelming. You have no weapons, you have no power, you have a government over the top of you that's going to oppress you, won't let you speak, won't let you breathe, trying to kill you off. You've got these guys who are trying to kidnap you, and then out of the dark, here comes the big dumb farmer from down the street. Right? Just walking down the street, just dragging that Oxgoad behind him. Do I smell Philistine? Right? Just killing people in your front yard. Like you're telling, I'm a little afraid of Shamgar. He's out here whooping Philistines again. That's who we're supposed to be for people. You got to go to war against sin. You got to fight for your brothers and sisters who are lost. You got to grab people by the hand and say, hey, you ain't got to live like this. You don't have to stay here. It's time to put to death the Philistines in your life. If I got to shake you, grab you, whatever we got to do, but you got to find the freedom of the cross of Jesus Christ. And it's at that point, it's not about preaching perfect. It's not about being super spiritual. It's just about loving people where they are, drawing on your own past and your own abilities so that they can find who Christ wants them to be. So instead of being a church that's decided, we're going to be the country club for people, and we're all going to get together, and we're all going to talk about how great our church is and how bad that church is, and anytime the world does something crazy, we're going to post 97 posts on Facebook and freak out. How about we be a church that views itself as a recycling center? All right? Let's be a recycling center church. Let's be the unsung heroes that are the trashmen of the world we live in. Those guys who drive around in those big trucks and pick up all your garbage so it doesn't pile up in your front yard. Let's go get the world's garbage. Right? Let's go find the messes in this world. And then let's figure out what their Philistines are, and then let's put that thing to death. Let's get in people's lives. I don't want to be a church that just shows up every Sunday and has some crazy religious experience thing where we're like, oh, we sang songs and I feel good about myself. I want to be a church that you can point at people and go, they were a drug addict. Their marriage was a mess. They were addicted to pornography. They were addicted to every drug substance you can think of. That's an opiate addict. I want to be able to point and go, you know what they are now? Son of the King. Bought with a price, set free from the darkness of this world. They are here because of Christ alone. Not because of anything we said or we did, but because we grabbed somebody by their hand in the dark and we walked them to a God who loves them, cares for them, and died for them so that they can set free from the darkness of this world. And then God took that person and he poured his Spirit into who they are so that they could be the hands and feet to somebody else that's wandering in the same bit of this broken ocean we call this world. That they were able to walk back and go, I'm an opium addict that God set free. I'm an alcoholic that God set free. I come from a broken marriage. I come from a broken home. I come from this. I come from that. And God saw fit to see past it, and he's restored me and made me into a new thing. My life is a reflection of the reconciliation of the cross of Jesus Christ. You are not the sin you are lost in. You were bought with a price. You need to wake up and start living that way. And you want proof for it and you want to see it? I brought my Oxgoad, and I'm here today to put a hole in the head of the thing that's leading you astray. That thing that you love, that thing that you think you have to have, it wants to take you and it wants to drag you off into the dark, and it wants to traffic you and sell you away and oppress you and exploit you and take advantage of you. It doesn't love you. It doesn't care for you. But for God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes will not perish but will have eternal life. God did not send his Son into this world to condemn it, but to save it. Let's go be that church. Let's pray. Lord, I come to you this morning, and I lift up every person in this room, Lord. First, Lord, I lift up those that are in the dogfight with their Philistine. Lord, I pray that you would raise up the Shamgar around them. Lord, don't let anybody who's a part of Vintage ever feel like they are alone. If you fight a fight, we fight a fight. This thing is blood in, blood out. Lord, I pray that Vintage would be a place where Philistines are put to death. Lord, let us overcome the bondage in our life. Let us overcome the things that feel like we can't overcome them. Lord, work the miracle of restoration and reconciliation in the lives of people in this room. We decide who we are going to follow. Lord, let us follow you. Lord, let Vintage be a church of recycling. A church that takes the things that's been disregarded, the things that the world says has no value, no redemptive purpose, Lord. Let us take those people. Let us bring them to the foot of your cross and let them find who you are and what it is you have for them. Lord, I pray restoration over every person in this room, Lord. And I'm not talking restoration as in we put a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound, Lord. I'm talking restoration in a place that they are a new thing in you. Lord, use those people who have come out of darkness. Use those people who think that they don't have worth. Use the people that the enemy speaks to them and say, you can never do anything because of what it is that you've done. Lord, raise those people up and make them mighty in your kingdom to do what it is you've called us to do. Help us to find our Shamgar place in our world. Use us to be heroes, Lord. Help us to find salvation for our friends and for our family. Lord, I thank you. You've given us an avenue to be restored. And now, Lord, I pray you would use us to bring that restoration into this world. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
As we enter into a time of worship and communion,